Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. I'm going to say good morning too. Let me do it in order. Gary Muirhead back from his hollybobs, probably tanned and Adonis-like as we speak. Mark Whiting is in the house. Stefan Edwards, we'll be hearing more from him in just a moment. Dan Cullen, who is apparently frustrated once again by the vagaries of the construction industry's employment processes. We'll be back to them in just a moment. I do want to show you very quickly my T-shirt, which is a gift from Mr. Muirhead. 1 second. Yes, good morning. Good morning. I see the assassins have failed. Thank you very much indeed, Gary. Wearing it with pride. Not doing good, lol. Shit news landed on site. Yes, for those of you that are not in our WhatsApp group, Dan Cullen arrived this morning, started a new job and was told he was surplus to requirements. Again. Happens rather too much. Dan enjoying the shirt. Jim Turner is here as well. Jim, good morning to you. How is the YouTube career going? I'm sure it's going great guns. Loads and loads of stuff to get through today. And we're going to be doing a competition. And I've agreed with basically the sponsor of the competition that we're going to do things a little bit differently today. Normally I ask you to punch something into the chat, which I'm going to do this time, but we're not going to do it based on a draw. We're going to do it on fastest finger first. Mercy Johnston has just arrived as well, so we've got a pretty good contingent of people up for grabs today. I've just dropped part of it on the floor, but up for grabs today, for those of you that aren't aware, is one of these. This is an Air Up water bottle. You probably hear it rattling around in there, which comes with one of these packs. Now I can't put this too close to the camera because the competition is about that box. Ken Hatter has just arrived. Morning, Ken. He's got some weather. Gary Muirhead, it's a good idea, but it's not right. That's not what we're after. So I'm going to put in the chat. In fact, I'll do it now. I'll trigger it in just a second. So I've put in the chat a web address, which is the Air Up website. Now, on the Air Up website, they have a thing. Because it's called the 3 flavor box. It's the best seller variety pack. If you go to the page that I'm about to link you to, you will be able to see it. It's not the 3 flavor box. It's not the cola mix. It's the best seller variety pack. And what I need you to tell me are the 3 flavors contained within that pack. It's here. It's in writing. I'm not going to hold it up there too long because I'd like you to go to the website. So here is the website. There you are. If you click on that link and go over to that website, the 3 flavor box, it's 1, 2, 3. It's the 4th one from the left. It has 3 flavors in it. I'd like you to name them. The first person that names all 3 wins the Air Up bottle. Simple as that. While you're doing that, I did mention Stefan Edwards earlier. We were talking with Stefan middle of last week, I think, about how the Dutch are embracing electric power on their demolition sites. I tried desperately and failed to download. Hang on a sec. Let me get rid of this very quickly. I tried and failed to download a video to bring you. But Stefan, being the kind of guy he is, he actually reached out to the company involved and said, can we have a video clip? And they very kindly agreed. So while you're playing around with Air Up and deciding which flavors are in the best seller variety pack, here's a very quick look at this. It's only 30 seconds or so, but this is how the Dutch are going about electrifying their demolition sites. We have a winner. Stefan, thank you very much indeed for sending that over. Interesting to see how they're going about things. We have a winner. We have a winner. And I can tell you, the winner is Mr. Muirhead. Mr. Muirhead, who correctly identified that the bestseller pack, the 3 flavor box bestseller pack, contains cola, peach, and watermelon. I don't know if you'll be able to make it out with the glare's killing me. You may be able to see that on the screen there. That is the correct answer. I know, Dan, you came up with the 5 flavor box, which is not the one we were after. You eventually came up with the right one. But Gary, you just won yourself, my friend, an Air Up water bottle. Now, we're not just doing this in complete isolation. For one thing, there is 4 more of those to give away. Gary, as of now, you are banned from taking part in the nicest possible way, because I'd like to share these around. I'll be getting this one in the post for you today, no problem at all. I do need to remind you that I'm going to be away. It turns out I'm away tomorrow and Wednesday. I was hoping to do a show tomorrow, but the time that JCB required me to be there doesn't allow me to do it. So there is no show tomorrow, no show Wednesday, but we'll be giving away more of those Air Up bottles on Thursday, Friday, and then Monday, Tuesday next week. So keep an eye out for that. But in addition to all of that, our morning monologue today is actually about hydration. It's an important subject, which I will do my level best to explain to you just as soon as we do that. So without further ado, let me roll the intro and get this show underway. It is Monday, the 11th of May. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, and the authentic voice of the global demolition industry. In today's show, is this the world's smallest high-reach excavator? I'll leave you to decide on that. We're going to be showing off Develon's new DX400 HD-9. Wacker Neuson further embraces probably electric equipment, and we're up on the roof with Case, not up on the roof with the drifters, but up on the roof with Case. And in today's edition of Mark's Morning Monologue, I've already hinted at it with the talk of hydration. Today's morning monologue is called Water Everywhere, not a drop to drink. It's called Water Everywhere. You get the idea. Before we get into all of that, I do have one thing that I do need to do. Our mate Mick is here as well. Good morning, Mick. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. You've missed out on winning a water bottle. You've missed the dancing girls and the free money, but glad to have you in our midst. I need to do something very quickly, and then we'll get on with the show properly after this. We learned on Friday last week that a widow of one of the 4 men killed at Didcot has now passed away herself. She lost her husband, her soulmate, and Thames Valley Police and the Health and Safety Executive failed to deliver answers, justice, or closure. 10 bloody years. 10 bloody years. I will do this right. 10 bloody years Gail Cresswell waited for justice. Her husband, Ken, was crushed under the rubble of Didcot. And how did the authorities respond? They dragged their heels through a decade of utter incompetence. It's nothing short of a national disgrace. They strung a grieving widow along with an interminable investigation, offering nothing but hollow promises and endless delays. They robbed her of closure, and now Gail has passed away without the answers she so rightly deserved. The sheer incompetence of a constabulary that can't conclude an inquiry in 10 years is utterly appalling. They failed Ken, they failed his mates, and they failed Gail and her family. Letting her go to her grave without closure is unforgivable. And I'm going to do this right. Letting her go to her grave without closure is an unforgivable dereliction of duty. Shame on the fucking lot of them. Apologies for the stumbling. It is a Monday morning, but 10 years that poor woman was kept waiting. From all that I know of Gail, very much, Ken's soulmate, children together. You'd have thought in 10 years, the authorities could have at least given us some idea of how and why her husband died. And unfortunately, she died never knowing. An absolute disgrace. Feel free to comment on that. Jim Turner, going back to his YouTube conquest. As regards YouTube, gained 100 new subscribers over the last week, so it would be nice to hope that momentum can be maintained. Can't be monetized until I get up to 3,000 hours of the right sort of watch time. I'm sticking up at least one vid a day, so I have my fingers crossed. Had a day out at Vintage Do yesterday, so got some YouTube material. Thanks for asking. Yeah, you'll be surprised that it's that you need 1,000 subscribers and what I think it's 3,000 watch hours. It's surprising. Once you get the volume of your channel up, that those views grow exponentially. You'll be surprised how quickly it came about. I know when we first did it, it was, Christ, that feels like a long way off. And then all of a sudden, a piece of cake, as it turns out. A couple of those big view shorts of yours and you'll be good to go. Loads to get through today, including we're going to actually start with a look back at Samota and one of the machines that I stumbled across. I'm guessing that not many other people picked up on it, but I'll be back after this. Quick good morning to Andy Dyson. Andy, unfortunately, you missed today's competition, but I'll be back on Thursday with another one. We're giving away an Air Up water bottle if you're interested in that. Dan, on the sad passing of Gail Cresswell, a complete travesty, 100%. Mixes, that's better. Bloody laptops driving me mad. Yeah, I can feel your pain. Such sad news, and still nothing from the NFDC or the authorities. Without your help, we would never have known about this sad news. No, probably not. I wonder if anybody else has realised. I do genuinely wonder if anybody else has realised. Sorry state of affairs. It really is. And I do get the impression that maybe this is the plan. It's almost like starving them out, isn't it? We keep dragging our heels, and we'll have an answer soon. We're nearly the end of our inquiries. We'll have a decision for you soon. Keep doing that and keep doing that. Probably in the vain hope that everyone will just die off and forget about it. Unless I die, hey, listen, anything's possible. But unless I die, I will not be forgiving it. Mick says, listening to Starmer, Jesus H. Christ, why can't this man just F off? I didn't think you have to worry about anything like that anymore. Hopefully the Track Marshal 70 is being delivered this week, so it'll be nice to get some footage of that at our place. Look forward to seeing that. Waiting with bated breath. Now, as you know, almost this time last week, I was in Verona. Having a stroll around, seeing the latest equipment. If you cast your mind back to Balmer, you might recall that I spotted a couple of mini high-reach excavators. I realise that's kind of a contradiction in terms, but I know Develon had one was good for 2 to 3 stories. There was a Case one was probably good for 2 stories. There's a new one. This one comes courtesy of Hitachi, and more specifically, K-Teg. I spotted it. I'll be surprised if anybody else did, but this is it. Is this the smallest high-reach excavator in the world? One of the emerging trends that we spotted at the last Balmer exhibition was this notion of a not very high-reach, compact high-reach excavators. Well, I've just found another one. It's done by K-Teg. I'm not into Masuko. It's on Masuko, Noleggio. I don't know the company, but there's a tiny high reach on display. I'm going to flip the camera around and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Okay, here is this compact high reach, based on a Hitachi 63 US. So 0 tail swing and yet still high reach. Go up to the attachment. There you are. Apologies for the jerky camera movement, but the gimbal seems to be working very, very slowly. So there you are. Might be the smallest high reach I've ever seen. The right application though, I think that's an absolute winner. I'll take a bit of a step back so you can really see it in all its glory. Don't have to go back that far because it's not that on there. And there you are, that is the whole thing. That might actually be my favourite machine of the show so far. There you are. As I say, courtesy of KTIG, it's on a little tiny 0 tail swing Hitachi. Not a tilting cab as far as I could tell. I did ask, couldn't make myself understood. Just a regular cab, but obviously 0 tail swing. Right application though. I think there's a winner there. I really do. And great to see. Those of you that have been around the demolition business, and I'm looking at you, Andy Dyson, and you, Andy Darvell, as well. There was a race a few years ago. It was a bit of like a dick measuring contest. Somebody went to 50 meters, so somebody else had to go to 55. Somebody then went to 58. Somebody went to 60. Somebody went to 62, 65, 70. It was how high can you go? Which is all well and good if you've got a long period of work for a very, very high reach excavator. Utilization on a real high reach, high reach, I think is very, very poor. Utilization on something like that, even if that machine does like the cleanup afterwards, you do top down or something like that, or maybe you even use a regular high reach. You get it down to 2 stories maybe, and then you take the big machine off with all its fuel consumption and everything else. Bung that off and put that little machine on there and let that finish the job. I think that's an absolute winner. Love to hear your thoughts on it. Stefan says, nice KTEC conversion. This mini high reach machine. Yes, that was my thoughts entirely. Absolutely fantastic. Jim Turner, going back to Gail Cresswell, terrible for her to die without any official closure. 100%. Yeah, 100%. It's too much to say that the health and safety executive and Thames Valley Police have her blood on their hands, but I do hope they feel very, very guilty right now. I really do. Mick says, reminds me of the Hitachi John Hanley had years ago. Mentioned it once. The one that Hitachi had no idea was. Yes, I remember that. Yes, they do occasionally come in via the side door, don't they? Could you call that a demo high reach? The cab doesn't have a demolition protection to be in the industry. All very true, although I do wonder quite what the regulations are. Obviously, that was an Italian machine in Italy. They may have different regulations. I do think it should be a regulation regardless of where you are. But yeah, that's it. That's what it is. It's about time they add cabs high up, not just the attachment. I agree 100%. Although with a machine of that size, high up is only about 4 foot off the ground, isn't it? I don't know what the reach was. Again, I tried desperately to ask questions, and I was met with the Italian equivalent of "Che?" There wasn't a lot of to and fro. So I did move film, and then I left with my tail between my legs. Anywho, we're going a little bit bigger with our excavators immediately after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, we've done little Hitachis. Now we're going to do a big Develon like this. to wind back very quickly, talking about that mini high reach. Mick says, just a point, the one John Hanley had did have full demo protection. Wouldn't be surprised if it was still laying in his yard down Brimsdown. Indeed. Looks like a smart and comfortable place to be in. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And Kevin Hawthorne, 52-57, all the way. I was going to say from sunny Florida. My guess is it's probably not sunny at the moment. My guess is it's the middle of the night. But Kevin Hawthorne, good morning to you, my friend. Thank you very much indeed for being here. What is the time where you are? I do need to invest in a world clock. I do need to get better at this, but be interested to find out. We're going electric in just a second after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Back to the Develon. Dan is saying, I love a bit of Develon. Nice kit, I agree. Jim Turner, going back to the idea of an elevated cab. If the cab was on the end of the first boom and the next pivot point had an amount of horizontal movement, the cab could remain static for a fair amount of the time. All true. Right, listen, these things exist. They do exist. If you want to go and have a look at the Senebogan website, I can prove that they exist and they work. They work very well. Need a few more manufacturers to take that on board, or a few more customers to ask for it. Wacker Neuson, one of the pioneers of electric equipment. Well, they've widened the brief and they've embraced yet more electric.
The emission-free EZ26 E-Compact Excavator, the high-energy powerhouse. Built for applications where performance and precision meet. The zero-tail design allows for safe slewing even in confined areas, ideal for urban construction sites, interiors, or directly along walls. Thanks to its electric drive, the EZ26E operates completely emission-free and almost silently, perfect for noise-sensitive environments. With its flexible charging options, it remains ready for use at all times, whether at a domestic socket or a high-voltage power connection. In stationary grid operation, it can even continue working while charging. The spacious cab with 7-inch display, intuitive jog dial, and programmable parking heater ensures relaxed and efficient work. The proven 3-part windshield system offers the right setting for every taste. And to ensure you are always on the safe side, the active working signal clearly indicates when the machine is active. The EZ26E, modern, powerful, and environmentally friendly.
A question from Gary. He says, have you any idea why you've been summoned to JCB? New product launch, or can't you say? Well, I would say if I knew. I have my own personal feelings. This has become a bit of a regular thing for JCB. As you know, we're now a month away from Hillhead, and JCB are past masters at hosting an event to launch a bunch of new products that they will then show again at Hillhead. As I say, very, very sensible, because all of us press will schlep up to Utoxeter, write about the new equipment, probably in glowing terms, and then fast forward to 4 weeks and we'll be writing about it again. Also, the other side benefit, most of the publications that will be writing about the new products now will be publishing in about 4 weeks' time. So people will be getting their copy of Quarry Management Magazine or Earth Movers or whatever it might be. Oh, look, JCB got some new kit, and it's going to be on display at Hillhead. I know, I'll go to Hillhead and see it firsthand. That's the plan, basically. Jim Turner says, or do you have the operator sat in a remote cab hanging from a crane at the safest, closest distance to the work? Seen that a few times. Not entirely convinced that suspended from a crane is a great idea. Why not just put them on a neighbouring building or on an actual fixed platform if you're going to do that? Just my own personal thoughts. Don't much like the idea of flapping around in the breeze, to be honest. And Dan saying, nice kit. Yeah, nice kit indeed. And just to very quickly let you know, it's a long way off. I've got several overseas trips plus a Mediterranean cruise to get in between now and then. But we are going to be off to, where are we going to be off to? Switzerland. No, Austria. We're going to Austria with Wacker Neuson around about September time, if memory serves me correctly. So look out for that. We'll be bringing you lots more from the fine folks at Wacker Neuson. We've got one more thing to show you, and it's weird, but it's cool. But it's weird. Back after this. Mick has just said this. Feel sorry for you lot over there. Starmer is the biggest sanctimonious, lying, self-centered dog's breath I've heard. God almighty, he is just a joke. Jim Turner says, announcing they're going to publicly back the Restore Party. They want us to pay. They like us all want to pay less tax. Okay, yeah, that makes sense now. And Gary saying there is also the famous JCB creme brulee. There is. If ever, I mean, obviously, I'm going there for work. Honest, but if ever I went to JCB and they didn't have a creme brulee, I think I'd feel cheated. I think I'd feel very cheated. Samota hosted an innovation awards. All of the major exhibitions do this now, and Samota was no exception. And one of the winners of an innovation award was a thing from Case called the Roof X. ROOF, like the top of your house, X. I saw a picture of it, and I actually thought for one weird moment that Case had gone into the drone business. They haven't. It looks like a drone, but it is not a drone. In actual fact, it's an intelligent hub that can sort out things like machine autonomy, can sort out things like human form detection, reversing signals. Case Roof X. It looks like a drone, but it isn't. I'll let them explain. If it does all that it says that it does, I'm pretty impressed with that. I mean, I can't help thinking there's quite a bit more to it than just dropping that thing on the roof of your machine. There must be some wiring in and software and stuff like that goes with it. But I have to say, I'm mightily impressed. I did see it. I saw it on the case stand. But until you actually see it out in the wild, frankly, it doesn't mean a great deal. But yeah, that's the Roof X from Case. What do we got here in the chat? Mick says, saw a JCB backhoe a few weeks ago. Well, it started off as a JCB, was talking to the owner. He said, and I quote, it was easier and cheaper to butcher other makes for arms, tracks, etc., to keep his one running. It was a United Nations of different makes cobbled together, and it works better than you. Wow. Looks very futuristic, says Gary. But have they actually tried it out in the wild yet? I don't know. I'm rather hoping that Case will be unveiling that properly. It was launched slightly to coincide with Samota. Be interested to see it out in the wild. That's the key thing. I mean, with AI these days, and I'm sure there was a lot of AI and CGI in that film, you can make anything look like anything, but it's quite a different matter to actually get it out and, in the muck and dirt and bullets of demolition and construction to actually make it work there. Jim says, if folk were landing and stopping at East Midlands Airport, I could pick them up and take them to JCB. Sorry. This relates back to this. Still reckon we all need to go on a JCB factory tour as a group outing. I tell you what, let me have a word with JCB. I mean, I don't know quite what the score is with that. But let me have a word, because as Jim says, if folk were landing and stopping at East Midlands Airport, I could pick them up and take them to JCB. I'd get 5 or 6 bods in my truck. Let me have a word with them. I mean, I've been knocking on the JCB door about doing a live show direct from the JCB factory for the best part of 4 years now, and I've never managed to pull it off. But let me see if we can do that. I even wonder if we could cobble together maybe half a dozen people, we might even be able to piggyback. I'm not expecting JCB to open or lay out the red carpet and open the doors for half a dozen of us, but we might actually be able to tag ourselves onto the back of somebody else's trip. Mick says, forgot, sent you an email earlier, have a read and let me know. Okay. Have I got an email from my mate Mick? I'll have a look at that, Mick. I can see what it's about. I'll come back to you just as soon as I've read it properly. Probably not the time to do it now. Right, okay, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very soon. If you do have the time and the inclination, I'll be back after this. Had a couple of other things. The only problem with it, Jim, it'll need to be a weekend, and would it be possible? I'm fairly sure they do visits there at the weekend, but I'll ask the question. Lee Mansfield says, I would like to do that, to see it. It's well worth it, and that would be fantastic. Let me have a word. I know a lot of you have got to get back to work, and that I fully understand, but for once, I would urge you to stick around, because today's morning monologue, kind of cautionary tale, and I've done it prompted by the people at Air Up that have supplied today's prize, but I've done it because it is an important subject. So if you can stick around, please do so, and I'll be back after this. There's a thing that people like me do when we're about to talk about a cause, particularly when we're trying to raise money for it. We say, this is a cause that is very close to my heart. And in this case, I mean it. Many years ago, I got a call from my best friend to say that his youngest daughter had been rushed to hospital. They'd been out all day when his 3-year-old daughter basically just collapsed. She was taken by ambulance to a hospital in London. I left work and drove into town, stopping only to buy a little teddy bear on the way. When I arrived, I found my best friend pacing the corridor. He said she'd basically passed out and they couldn't revive her. I went in to see her, this tiny little girl with wires and tubes coming out of her. I gave her the teddy bear and I spoke to her for a while. The doctors confirmed that she'd suffered a brain bleed and that her little life was literally hanging in the balance. I stayed for a while trying to comfort my mate who was, as you'd expect, inconsolable. On the drive home, I called my wife to give her an update. As I was telling her what I'd seen and what the doctors had said, I broke down. I literally had to pull over. I just sat there and sobbed. Thankfully, that little girl is now in her 20s. That brain bleed has left her prone to seizures. In all likelihood, she'll never be allowed to drive. And all of that was caused by a seemingly innocuous thing: dehydration. With all that in mind, we need to talk about something that usually gets brushed off as a bit of a soft topic. We need to talk about heat health and the reality of staying hydrated. The official heat health alert season in the UK kicks off on the 1st of June and runs right through to the end of September. Now, for many of us, that just sounds like the time of year when the work gets a bit sweatier and the PPE gets a bit itchier. But the reality is that the construction sector is probably the most hydration-challenged workforce in Britain. And it's not because anyone is thick or doesn't realise that water is important. It's because the way a site actually functions is almost perfectly designed to make you fail at staying hydrated. Think about the last time you were on a major demolition job or a massive new build. If you're 3 stories up or right at the back of a sprawling site, that water refill point might as well be in the next county. When you're in the middle of a task or you're trying to hit a specific milestone before the end of a shift, the last thing you want to do is down tools, climb down, trek across the site and wait to top up a bottle. You tell yourself you'll grab a drink when the job is done or at the next scheduled break. But while you're pushing through, your body is paying a price you might not even notice until the headache kicks in or your focus starts to slip. Then you have PPE. We wear it because we have to, because we're professionals. But let's be honest, in 25-degree heat, a hard hat, gloves, and a heavy-duty high-vis gear turn into a personal sauna. Your core temperature climbs, and the more you sweat, the more your blood thickens, making your heart work twice as hard just to keep you upright. Taking that gear off to have a drink feels like an interruption, a break in the momentum. So we delay, we keep going. And that's where the danger starts to creep in. You want to get the job done, and hydration feels like an inconvenience. Water becomes the thing you'll sort out later. But by the time later arrives, fatigue has already taken hold. There's also a bit of a silent trade-off that we don't talk about enough on site, and that's the issue of toilet access. It sounds basic, but we've all been there. If the site toilets are a nightmare, or if they're situated miles away from where the actual work is happening, some people will consciously drink less water just to avoid the hassle of having to go. It's a survival tactic, but it's a dangerous one. If you're rationing your water intake because you don't want to go to the portable loo, you're essentially sabotaging your own ability to think and move safely. And let's look at the culture for a minute. In this country, sites are fueled by tea, coffee, and increasingly energy drinks. It's part of who we are. A brew is more than just a drink. It's a moment of headspace, a bit of a social reset. Research tells us that about 28% of Brits say they rely on caffeine just to stay productive. And nearly half of the people... Sorry, excuse me. Let me do that bit again. Research tells us that about 28% of Brits say they rely on caffeine just to stay productive. And nearly half of people think that tea, coffee, or energy drinks actually count as hydration. But here is the cold, hard truth. When the heat is on and you're grafting, those drinks are not your friends. Caffeine is a diuretic. It basically sends a signal to your kidneys to get rid of water. So if you're already losing fluid through sweat and then you top it up with 3 or 4 strong coffees, you're actually making the dehydration worse. You're flushing out the very stuff your body needs to keep your brain sharp and your muscles moving. Energy drinks are even worse because of the sugar spikes and the inevitable crashes. They might give you a 10-minute buzz, but they leave you more vulnerable to heat exhaustion in the long run. The HSE doesn't put out a guidance for the sake of it. They specifically advise frequent sips of cool water precisely because caffeine doesn't afford the hydration levels required for the physical load that you carry. We have to stop thinking about hydration as a wellness thing and start seeing it as a performance and a safety thing. If your body loses just 2% of its water, your concentration starts to tank. In an industry where a second of distraction can lead to a serious or possibly fatal accident, being dehydrated makes you a liability to yourself and to the rest of your team. And the side effects are more than just a bit of a dry mouth. It starts with a headache that you try to ignore. Then comes the lightheadedness. You might find yourself being unusually irritable with your mates or struggling to focus. From there, it moves to muscle cramps, which are your body's way of screaming that its electrolytes are all gone. If you keep pushing, you hit nausea and dizziness. That's the point where heat exhaustion is knocking on the door. And if you cross that line into heat stroke, you're looking at a genuine medical emergency that could do permanent damage to your internal organs. It's not about being tough enough to handle the sun. It's about biology. You can't tough out a lack of water any more than you can tough out a lack of oxygen. A professional athlete wouldn't dream of starting a game dehydrated. And what we do is every bit as physical. You should be drinking a good amount of water before you even set foot on site. If you start your shift in a deficit, you'll be chasing your tail all day and you'll never truly catch up. On site, we also need to move away from the idea of the big drink. Gulping down a litre of water at lunch doesn't do much for your body because your body can only process so much at once. Most of it will just go straight through you. The trick is little and often. Small, frequent sips every 15 or 20 minutes to keep your hydration levels steady and to keep your brain switched on. And for the managers and the ones running the sites, the responsibility is every bit as big. Don't make the lads trek across the site just for a drink of water. Don't make the lads trek across site just for a drink of water. Get it to the work zone. If it's easy to reach, people will drink it. In the peak of the summer heat, we should be looking at shorter, more frequent breaks in the shade. It's better for the job to take 10 minutes longer than to have someone collapse or make a catastrophic mistake because their brain is foggy from the heat. And we also need to keep an eye on each other. If you see a mate who's usually sharp starting to fumble, or if they're looking a bit flushed, not making much sense, don't just tell them to get on with it. Get them some water. Get them into the shade for 5 minutes. It's about site culture. We look out for each other when it comes to harnesses and hard hats. We need to do the same when it comes to the heat. As the summers continue to get more intense, staying hydrated has to become a core part of the trade. It's about ensuring that at the end of a long, hot shift, everyone walks off that site in the same condition they walked on. So keep the brews for the start and the end of the day if you must. But when the sun is out and the work is hard, make sure the water is the first thing you reach for. It's the only way to stay cool under the kind of pressure you deal with every single day. So, hopefully you've all had a drink while you were listening to that. A couple of things. I'll go back to that initial story about my best mate's daughter, Brittany. They went to Brighton for the day, did the usual thing, you know, portion of chips, probably with salt on them, which is helps get rid of some of the water in you. You know, kids being kids, they don't want glasses of water, they want cans of Coke and stuff like that. So yeah, they got back home again, having had a nice day out in the sunshine. Walked through the front door, she wobbled a bit and then just keeled over, and they couldn't bring her around. So sent for an ambulance, and she was whisked off. The bit that I didn't mention in that story, which is one of the things that really stuck with me, and it's weird how you narrow your focus. I met my mate. I walked into the hospital, went up to the ward and stuff, and he was literally sort of pacing up and down outside, inconsolable, as you'd expect. And he said, "Do you want to go in and see her?" I said, "Yeah." So we walked in together, and you know, slightly to the left of the door we went through was Brittany laying in a bed, and she's 3 years old, tiny little thing, tubes and saline drips and wires and monitors and fuck knows what else. And I sat down by her bed, held her hand, had a chat to her, gave her a teddy bear. Obviously, there was no response whatsoever. And when I run out of things to say and I wanted to talk to my mate more, I got up. And as I went to leave, I realised we weren't in like an individual room. We were in not a corridor, but a really long room. And I reckon there was 20 other kids, all in either in comas or in induced comas, all hooked up to monitors, all hooked up to drips, wires and tubes and everything else. Absolutely heartbreaking. It really was. And that's where she stayed for, I think it was 3 days. And then they finally brought her around. As I say, it's caused some scarring on her brain. She's not fully epileptic, but she's had a couple of seizures in the last 18 years since that happened, all because of dehydration. And bizarrely, I've been going to Spain and Portugal and Italy, and I've been to Egypt and Morocco, some very, very hot places. And you do tend to do a thing when you go to these foreign locations. You tend to take things like hydration and sun protection much more seriously. You put your hat on, you maybe put something around your neck. That's one of my ones. Put something around your neck. You drink a little bit more fluids. Maybe you duck out of the sun, which is something I do as well. But I've been caught out by heat stroke twice in my life. Once was when I was playing cricket for the school. Literally a whole day in the sunshine, sun beating down. Yes, we had a drink at break time, but basically just stood there and got baked. And the one that did me worse was I went fishing, oddly enough, with Brittany's dad, Bruce, my best mate. We went down to Kingston upon Thames. There's the River Thames flows through there, and we were stood there fishing, and it was such a hot, beautiful day that we both had a pair of shorts on, stripped off t-shirts, and we were stood in the water, cool water, gushing past our calves, hopefully to keep us cool. No hats, no shirts. Did it all. I mean, I got a bit sunburnt, which was stupid anyway. But my mate was driving. He dropped me off at home. I got all my gear out of the car. I walked up the stairs to my front door, put the fishing gear in the cupboard by the front door, and collapsed. Just went out, spark out. And the next thing I knew, my dad was throwing cold water in my face. That's what dehydration can do for you. So please, people, look after yourselves, would you? Let me go back to this. Lee says, thanks for that. Can you please message me on Facebook when you know about the JCB day out? I will. I'm seeing JCB tomorrow afternoon, evening, and then all day the day after that. I've got a bunch of things I want to talk to them about. That is now one of them. I'll keep you all posted. Stranger, talking of this, those who run the sites make sure in most cases there's water dust suppression, and yet most don't put drinking water points around, let alone portaloos. Yeah, and again, I can never remember what the regulation is, but if a site is too small or not there for long enough, there is no actual requirement to put a portaloo in place. And if there's no requirement to, nobody will, in which case you have no toilet facilities. So there is an inclination to maybe not drink so much. If it means you've got to down tools and walk down to the local cafe or the indignity of peeing up the back of a machine, some people will decide not to actually take on board water. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it, but I did dig something out over the weekend, and I will do my best. Yeah, here we go. That's what I was looking for. Feels like a slightly odd subject to be talking about on a podcast or a live stream that's dedicated to, well, primarily to demolition and construction equipment. But let's talk pee, shall we? Let's talk pee. You will see from that chart that it is actually possible to be overhydrated, and I've actually managed that from time to time. Back when I used to play squash and stuff like that, you'd sometimes come off court and chugging water, and you feel quite pleased with yourself. You go for a pee and it's like gin, it's completely clear. Not good. That's too much. Basically, that water hasn't stopped in your system anywhere near long enough to flush out the toxins that you need to flush out. What you should be looking for, and I can only say it's the second one from the left, you're looking for somewhere from good to fair. So a bit of a yellowish tinge. As I say, don't particularly want to talk about pee, but we are where we are. So yeah, you want a bit of yellow. You don't want to be dark yellow, and you most certainly do not want to be right round in the brown. I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again now. I was on a site in West London with Collard a few years ago, spotlessly clean toilets, and they had one of those charts literally above the urinals. So while you're having a pee, you can actually have a look down and think, yeah, could probably do with a drink of water, or, yeah, I'm okay. My guess is most of them were probably not okay. There's the cultural thing as well. And I know I've got a bit of a hang-up. About energy drinks, but they do cause me some concern because they are basically flushing out your kidneys of the very stuff that you need. In other words, they're taking moisture and water out of your system. Same as coffee, same as tea. Yeah, I wake up every single morning, cup of coffee. Once that's gone, I'll have a cup of tea. I'll have another cup of tea. I do actually have a big bottle of water that I keep on my desk now, particularly now it's getting a bit warmer. But I am very, very, very conscious of it. And I think you all need to be too. And now they're pushing the silicosis problem. Water is and will be a very important issue on site. Yeah. Again, going back to some folks in the demolition industry, I'm fairly sure it was John F. Hunt. I remember doing a thing long before the Breakfast Show started, but they did a campaign like heat awareness. They had free dispensers of suntan or sunscreen on. They were doing hats and things that dangled down from the back of the hat to cover up your neck, because that's a really soft spot that you want to be very careful of. Some people are doing this, but some are not. And again, I do wonder about this notion of the culture of the industry. You know, if you were to suddenly down tools at, what is it now? It is 10:58. If you were to suddenly down tools now, stroll across the site with a water bottle in your hand, your site supervisor, wait, what's your game? There's work to do. Get on with it. So you're not going to do that. So there is that notion of possibly keeping your legs crossed or drinking a little bit less so that you don't get caught out by that. There is, the social aspect of tea and coffee. I think we all do that. There's trying to hit milestones and deadlines. The concrete's due in an hour. You're not going to stop and have a drink and then go back to work. You're going to work solidly. So when the concrete does pitch up, you're ready to deal with it. The industry is accidentally, but it is designed to make hydration problematic. So you kind of need to take care of it yourself. Dan says, very good monologue, Mark, and very true, as people don't understand the details of hydration. No, they don't. I mean, as I say, it is a cause that is close to my heart and everything else, but only because I've seen it up close and personal. When you see a little 3-year-old literally hanging on to life purely because she didn't drink enough, that's not great. That's not great. And I know 3-year-olds are very active, and I know they'd rather have a fizzy drink than a bottle of water or whatever it might be. But we're big enough and ugly enough to know better. Mick says, those signs are readily available to put up in toilets and have been for a few years. Yeah, I've seen them about. I remember the Collard one specifically because it was the first time I'd seen one in the wild. I have seen more since. But you kind of need that in your head, I think. Rather than I'll go to the loo and I'll check the Dulux chart to see how my pee is. Kind of fix in your head. That's about acceptable, and that really is not acceptable. I know, but last time when we went to Mine Expo in Las Vegas, it was up at like about 40, 41, 42 degrees while we were there. Incredibly hot. And yeah, I mean, without being overly graphic, I was peeing something close to treacle at one point. So yeah, just took myself off. Lots of water, little and often. Stephen Edwards says, we've introduced additional mandatory drink breaks. The urine colour chart is displayed in all site toilets. We provide sunscreen on all our sites. Very important to stay on top of this. Thank you very much indeed, Stephen. And good to hear that the fine folks at Brown & Mason are doing the job properly. I tip my hat to you. On my 3rd litre of water now, says Mick. Well, it's 22 at the moment. Just saying, yeah, it's not 22 here. The sun's out, but it's not exactly warm. I have all my snapper water in the cabin with me, so if we're ploughing on, I can always have a swig and eat without stopping work. That's the way to do it. That is the way to do it. You can supply as many water coolers and bottles of water on site, but the education is still required. Yeah, I mean, there's a point, and I'm not pointing accusing fingers. I'm actually asking a question here. I don't know if Andy Dyson is still with us from Erith, but Stefan is here with us from Brown and Mason. In amongst all your toolbox talks and pre-start briefings and inductions and that, do you actually touch on the subject of hydration? I'd be interested to know if that's the case. My guess is that some may do and that some may not. But as I say, there is, this was a surprise to me. It was only when I started researching it that I discovered this. There is a heat health alert system in place from the 1st of June to the end of September. And obviously, you know, we can argue about the pros and cons of global warming, but our summers are getting warmer. It's been bad in the past. It's not going to get any better. So listen, on the way to work, ignore the cans of Monster, ignore the cans of Red Bull, get yourself a big bottle of water and just every so often, every 15, 20 minutes, just to wet your whistle, as my dad used to say, because it might keep you upright. You never know. It might even save your life. That idea of your blood thickening and your heart having to work harder. You know, if you're in your 20s, probably not that big a deal. If you're in your 50s, maybe not in the best of health, that's a problem. That's a very, very serious problem. And we don't want anyone to be suffering from that. That pretty much wraps everything up for today. No show tomorrow, no show on Wednesday, because I shall be up in the wilds of Uttoxeter with the fine folks at JCB. I'll be reporting back on all of that on Thursday, and we'll be giving away another one of these. This one is Gary's. This one is Gary's, and this one is also Gary's as well. I'll be putting that in the post for Gary in the next 2 hours, I would guess, by the time I've finished fanning around here. So Gary, look out for that over the next few days. I know you're away, but by the time you get back home at the weekend, that should be waiting for you, probably filled with chilled water that Christine has taken care of for you. Until Thursday, everybody, have a fine and splendid week. Look after yourself, stay hydrated, and I'll see you all very, very soon indeed. All the best.